हेलो दोस्तों, स्वागत है आप सभी का हमारे चैनल इग्नो सेंटर पर। तो दोस्तों, आज हम जो आपको सॉल्व असाइनमेंट प्रोवाइड कराने जा रहे हैं वो MEG 06 का असाइनमेंट रहेगा, जो कि 2021 और 22 के लिए इम्पोर्टेंट रहेगा सेशन वालों के लिए, और ये 23 वाले को भी इम्पोर्टेंट हो सकता है, क्योंकि बाकी तरह क्वेश्चंस जो असाइनमेंट में दिए जाते हैं वो भी यहीं से होते हैं, और ये आपको एग्ज़ाम में भी इम्पोर्टेंट आएगा, क्योंकि एग्ज़ाम में भी आपको ये क्वेश्चन पूछे जा सकते हैं। तो दोस्तों, बढ़ते हैं हमारे आज के क्वेश्चन की तरफ। तो आज का जो क्वेश्चन है वो है MEG 06 का, जो कि आपको मास्टर डिग्री इन इंग्लिश अमेरिकन लिटरेचर का जो टॉपिक है उसके बारे में रहेगा। ये आप क्वेश्चन से जो इग्नो ने दिया है वो देख सकते हैं। ये प्रूफ के साथ हम आपको असाइनमेंट सॉल्व करा के दिखाएंगे। और इस पर जो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन है वो आपका है, कमेंट ऑन द थीम ऑफ वेल्सी स्टेवंस पोएम द एम्परर ऑफ आइसक्रीम। Number 2, discuss the narrative structure in Huckleberry Finn. Number 3, attempt or comparative reading of A Clean Well, Light Placed and The Bear. Number 4, discuss the Scarlet Letter as a रोमांस नोवेल। और ये स्कारलेट नोवेल का जो है वो बाकी तरह एग्ज़ाम में भी पूछे जाते हैं, तो आप ये जो क्वेश्चन नंबर 4 है वो मार्क कर लीजिएगा। हाउ इज नेचर प्रेजेंटेड इन वाइट मैन पोइट्री डिस्कस। तो दोस्तों, ये 5 क्वेश्चन है जो कि आज हम डील करेंगे, और इसका जो आंसर है वो ये प्रोवाइड PDF में है। अमेरिकन लिटरेचर असाइनमेंट 2021 to 22। आप कुछ क्वेश्चन हमने जो दिया था वो क्वेश्चन आप देख सकते हैं। कमेंट ऑन द थीम ऑफ वेल्स स्टेवन पोएम द एम्परर ऑफ आइसक्रीम, डिस्कस द नेरेटिव स्ट्रक्चर इन हकबरी फिन, attempt or comparative reading of A Clean Wet Lighted Place and The Bear, discuss the Scarlet Letter as a romance novel, and how is nature represented in White Man Poetry discuss। तो दोस्तों, यही रहेगा आपका क्वेश्चंस, और हम आज के जो आंसर है उसकी तरफ बढ़ते हैं। अगर ये वीडियो लंबा जाएगा तो हम इसको पार्ट में डिवाइड करेंगे, और पार्ट में डिवाइड करने के बाद हम आपको जो पार्ट बनेगा उसका डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में लिंक दे देंगे। तो दोस्तों, ये आपका पार्ट 1 रहेगा, जिसका क्वेश्चन से कमेंट ऑन द थीम ऑफ वेल्सी स्टेवन पोएम द एम्परर ऑफ आइसक्रीम। और इसका जो आंसर है वो रहेगा बैकग्राउंड एंड क्रिटिकल एप्रिसिएशन। द एम्परर ऑफ आइसक्रीम इज अ सेलिब्रेटेड पोएम फ्रॉम वेल्सी स्टेवन फर्स्ट कलेक्शन ऑफ पोएट्री हारमोनियम। It was first published in 1922, so it is in the public domain. The poem were a deliberately commonplace costume he wrote in a letter, and yet seems to me to contain something of the essential guidelines of poetry. That is the reason why I like it. And the Emperor of Ice Cream is open to interpretation, although the poem suggests meaning behind the words. It does not explicitly state the meaning, whereas one reader may regard the planned festivities at the wake as disrespectful to the deceased woman. Another reader may regret it as a positive response to the woman's death. After all, life must go on. The point is that perception of the world differ from person to person. They are like images on the caves of painters from different schools of art. Painters who have unique perception of reality even within their own school. All of the painters could paint the same scene, a field of flower, for example, and all the painting would be different in some way. The interpretation of the poem present on this page are certainly not definitive or absolute. They are only one person interpretation of what the author present. The woman's death present an opportunity for her acquaintance to hold a party. The pleasure they will derive from the occasion apparently matter more than the moral of the deceased woman. They are supposed to be mourning, no doubt. The woman who attend will pay homage to the muscular man who make the concupiscent clouds. Line 3. That is appetizing sensual cuts that will continue the ice cream. He and the ice cream represent sensual or physical pleasure. In turn, the boy, line 5, will no doubt will want to live it up with the Wednesdays, line 4. Even if they are attending awake, everyone wants to seize the day carpe diem. The emperor of ice cream will preside at the festives, dispensing pleasure by the दोलोग. सो दोस्तों आपका जो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन था वो क्वेश्चन का आंसर वही था, और आपका जो सेकंड का क्वेश्चन है वो क्वेश्चन हम यही पार्ट में डिस्कस करेंगे. तो जो क्वेश्चन है वो है डिस्कस द नैरेटिव स्ट्रक्चर इन हकलबेरी फिन. द नैरेटिव स्ट्रक्चर इन हकलबेरी फिन. There are three important factors which are critical in the process of narration, and one should keep this factor in mind. These factors are the storyteller, the event of the story, and the way in which the storyteller presents this event. The fourth element of for the process of narration is the audience to whom the story being narrated. There are a number of factors which influence the choice of the events that make a story and also how these events are presented. Some of these factors are age, sex, race, social status of both the storyteller and the audience. Another important aspect which must be looked carefully is the conventional governing the narration. Apart from this, language used in the narration is also of great importance. The novel which are about to analyze is episodic in structure and therefore can be divided into three basic parts. Part 1, Prelude to the Journey of Escape. In this part of novel, if we can group the first 11 chapters of the book as they are all take place in the St. Petersburg or place near St. Petersburg, the distinguished quality of the novel is apparent in the first line of the novel with which it begins. Here, Hark, a character in a train previous novels, Tom Sawyer became a narrator of his own adventure. The adventures which we are about to experience. Huck starts with talking about the events of the novel, Tom Sawyer, and how this changed in his life because of those events. We also come to see Tom, but for a very brief time. By the end of chapter 3, Tom Sawyer is dropped off from the narrative. It is important that we must notice the sharp turn in the narrative which takes place with the introduction of Pug Huck's drunken father in the chapter 4. We learn that Huck does not like the civilized way for widow Douglas and her sister Miss Watson, and he also against the way his father treated him. Therefore, in order to get away from all these problems, he faked his own death and stakes off John Island. It is on this island that he met Jim, who had escaped too. Huck learned that Jim is scared that his own Miss Watson is going to sell him down the river for $800. Hacking attempt to get some news about the recent happening learns that the people are looking forward to capture Jim, Both Jim and Huck leave the island on a raft down the Mississippi River to achieve freedom. These 11 chapters actually prepare the narrative for the adventures in the quest of freedom to follow. Part 2, Journey on a raft. Huck and Jim start downriver on the raft, intending to leave it at the mouth of the Ohio River and proceed up that river by steaming boat to the Free State where slavery is prohibited. Several days travels take them past St. Louis and they have a close encounter with a gang of robbers and a wrecked steamboat. They manage to escape with the robber loot. During a night of thick fog, Huck and Jim miss the mouth of the Ohio and encounter a group of men looking for escaped slaves. Huck's a brief Hux has a brief moral crisis about concealing stolen property. Jim, after all, belonged to Miss Watson, but then lies to the man and tells them that his father is on the raft suffering from smallpox. Terrified of the disease, the men give Hunk money and hurry away. Unable to backtrack to the mouth of the Ohio, Hunk and Jim continue river down. The next night, a steamboat slams into the raft and Hunk and Jim are separated. Hunk ends up in the home of the kindly Gangerfords, a family of southern aristocrats locked in a bitter and silly feud with a neighboring clan. The Shepherdons, the development of a Gangersford daughter with a Shepherdson son lead to a gun battle in which many in the families are killed. While Hunkies catch up in the feud, Jim show up with the repaired raft. Hunk hurry to Jim hiding place and the takeoff down the river. A few days later, Hunk and Jim rescue a pair of men who are being pursued by armed bandits. The men clearly knows artist claim to be display English Duke, the Duke, and the long lost heirs to the French throne, the Dauphin. Powerless to tell two wise adults to leave, Hunk and Jim continue down the river with the pair of aristocrats. The Duke and the Dauphin pull several scams in the small towns along the river. Coming into one town, they hear the story of man Peter Walking, who has recently died and left much of his inheritance to his two brothers, who should be arrived from England any day. The Duke and the Dauphin enter the town pretending to be Wilkes brothers. Wilkes three nicely welcome the conman and quickly set about liquidating the state. A few townspeople became skeptical, and Hunk, who grew to admire the Wilkes sister, decided to thwart the scam. He steals the dead Peter Vulcan goals from the Duke and the Dauphin, but is forced to stretch it in Vulcan coffee. Hunks then reveals all to the eldest Wilkes' sister, Mary Jane. Hunk's plan for exposing the Duke and the Dauphin is about to unfold when Wilkes' real brother arrives from England. The angry townspeople hold both sets of Wilkins' claim, and the Duke and the dolphin just barely escape in the ensuing confusion. Fortunately for the sisters, the gold is found. Unfortunately for Hung and Jim, the Duke and the dolphin make it back to the raft just as Hung and Jim are pushing off. After a few more small scams, the Duke and the dolphin commit their worst crime yet. They sell Jim to local farmer, telling him Jim is run away for whom a large reward is being offered. Hung finds out where Jim is being held and resolves to free him. Freeing of Jim, Part 3. This part of novel consists of 12 chapters which are basically an elaborated plan by Hank and Tom in order to free Jim. At the house where Jim is a prisoner, a woman gets Hank excited and calls him Tom as Hank quickly discovers the people holding Jim are none other than Tom Sawyer, aunts and uncle, Silas and Sally Phillips. The Phillips make Hank for Tom, who is due to arrival for a visit, and Hung goes along with the mistakes. He intercepts Tom between the Phillips house and Steamboat Dock. The Tom pretends to be his own younger brother Sid. Tom hatches a wild plan to free Jim, adding all sorts of unnecessary obstacles even though Jim is only lightly secure. Hunk is sure Tom Plant will get them all killed, but he complies nonetheless. After a seeming eternity of pointless preparation, during which the boy ransack the Phillips house and make Aunt Sally miserable, they put the plant into action. Jim is freed, but a pursuer shoots Tom in the leg. Hank is forced to get a doctor, and Jim sacrifices his freedom to nurse Tom. All are returned to Philip's house, where Jim ends up back in jail. When Tom's wake the next morning, he reveals that Jim has actually been a free man all along, as Miss Watson, who made a provision in her will to free Jim, died 2 months earlier. Tom had planned the entire escape idea all as a game and had intended to play Jim for his troubles. Tom and Pulley then show up, identify Tom and Sid as Hunk and Tom. Jim tells Hunk, who fears for his future, particularly that his father might appear, that the body they found on the floating house of Jackson Island had been Pap's. Aunt Sally then steps in the offer to adopt Hunk, but Hunk, who had enough civilized, announced his plan to set out for the west. So फ्रेंड, इधर तक हमने क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 डील कर लिया है। तो दोस्तों हम बस इधर रीड कर रहे हैं। बाकी कितने लोग कमेंट करते हैं कि बस आप रीड कर रहे हैं। तो दोस्तों इतना लंबा क्वेश्चन समझाने में भी टाइम लगता है, और इस समझाने जाएंगे तो आपको वीडियो भी बहुत लंबा बन जाएगा। तो दोस्तों आप इतने पढ़े लिखे तो होंगे कि आप अपने क्वेश्चन को प्रिपेयर कर लीजिए, और उसके बाद में अपने आप से 2-3 बार रिपीट करने पर आपको समझ में आ जाएगा, अगर आपको स्टोरी मालूम है तो। दोस्तों आपको क्वेश्चन आंसर से सिर्फ काम नहीं चलेगा, आपको स्टोरी और नोवेल के थीम्स भी याद करने होंगे आपके एग्ज़ाम के प्रिपरेशन के लिए। धन्यवाद।